Hello and welcome to Vergecast, the flagship podcast of face computers and the trademarked Vergecast matrix of wearable stuff. I don't want to start with a swear word, but if you know, it's usually a swear word. Hi, I'm your friend Nilay. Alex Franz is here.
I'm also wearing my augmented reality glasses right now.
Because they pass light through them?
Yeah, they pass light through them and everything is augmented now. I can see.
It's been augmented into focus.
Yeah.
I got you. David Pierce is here.
Hello.
And Alex Heath is here. Alex, are you actually wearing a face computer?
I am, but you'll never know.
It's a big week in tech news. Quite a lot going on. It was Meta Connect. Alex was there along with Kylie Robinson and Jay Peters. Alex, you wore the Orion AR glasses, the demo. You interviewed Zuckerberg. We got to talk all about that. There's tons of other news out of Meta Connect. And then there's chaos at OpenAI, which a company, for being as successful as it is, remains mired in nothing but pure chaos.
We could just snip that and play it every single week on the Vergecast.
Yeah.
Just that thing you just said is it's just a universally true statement at this point.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. And then we have Lightning Round, unsponsored.
Still.
I have walked into rooms at this company and demanded why the Lightning Round is unsponsored.
Was anybody else in the room?
No one else was in the rooms. This is I'm working up to the final result. But you walk into a room, where Eater is having a staff meeting demanding the Lightning Round be sponsored. And they're like, we're doing a roundup on cakes. Like, get out of here. I'm working on it every day, closer to the goal. Okay, let's start with Meta. Alex, you wore the Orion. I think the Orion is the thing to talk about. They've been working on this for 10 years at Reality Labs, burning billions of dollars a year. They did it. They made AR glasses, but you can't buy them and they cost $10,000.
Kind of. Yeah, you can't buy them. So they are glasses in the sense that you can put them on and they work to a degree. I wrote this in the story and I had a hard time writing about this because I've been getting a lot of almost products put on my face recently, like just coming off of Snap.
We do have a series of photos of you that is incredible right now.
Yeah, I need to make like a photo book to just have at home and look at it and go like, that's a cry for help. Me wearing all these face computers. Yeah, it's a really impressive demo. I think Meta is doing the demos because it knows it's impressive, but it's not a product. So, I mean, I wrote this in the story. It's not vaporware. Like, it's very real, and it's not a simulation. It's not totally on rails. I used it for probably a total of 2.5 hours between the 2 days we were shooting, and I had enough opportunity to go off of the beaten path a little bit and make sure I wasn't just getting piped in a complete simulation. And it's a real working piece of kit, but it's not a product. And that says a lot about the state of AR in these glasses. And at the same time, I finally feel like I've been writing about this for so long, banging my head against a wall and being like, what am I doing? This is never going to happen. And I finally feel after this week that AR glasses I may actually want to use are not a pipe dream.
Yeah. I want to argue with you about the definition of the word vaporware, which is very important to me personally.
Yeah. And holograms.
So let's start. Alex and I got into a real fight about what the word holograms means this week. We'll get into all this, I promise. But let's start with what it is, right? Because AR glasses, you're correct. The industry has been talking about them for a long time. Magic Leap promised AR glasses years ago. If you'll remember, their founder claimed that he could hack the GPU of your brain. This is a real thing. And that was in reference to a display technology, because this is the challenge. How do we build a display that you can look through, that can augment reality, have the processing power to see reality and augment it, have connectivity, have a battery and no one can solve these problems. Most of all, the display.
Yeah.
The thing doesn't exist. The thing that you look through to perceive the world and then layer information over stuff. You could maybe solve battery and processing and all this stuff in you're wearing a backpack. But the actual display technology to make it good has more or less not existed in any realistic way. And Magic Leap had to give up on their idea, and they tried another thing, and HoloLens was another thing with a tiny field of view, and there's a long list of things with bad fields of view. And it seems like that's the thing Meta solved most of all here.
Yeah. A quote that really stuck out to me from the product lead when I was getting my demo was that the display was a scientific breakthrough problem they had to solve. And now they're in the engineering problem solving phase of making these glasses work at a price point that people can actually buy. And that really stuck with me. You're right that the display is the hardest part. The distinction between AR glasses like these and the Vision Pro or the Meta Quest is that, yes, you can do mixed reality in the Pro and the Quest, in the Vision and the Quest, but what they're doing is fully enclosing your face in a computer, piping video in, and mixing all that in the displays. These are literally just, these glasses, Orion, are letting light in. They're actual glasses. And so the challenge there is much different. And Meta has a lot of good ideas here. And they also, I think, realized that the specific optical stack that they went with for Orion was just inexplicably hard to manufacture. And these lenses are made of silicon carbide, which is also used in like space. It's used in EVs.
It's used in like Dremels. It's like what you use for cutting tools. It's primarily
literally like a giant crystal. And so
it's also used for wedding rings sometimes. So basically it's like having two fake diamonds on your face.
Yeah. And they were talking to me about this and this like challenge of the yields on this. It's like, you have to cut the crystal perfectly. He's like, and there's not enough of it in the world, so we're growing crystals. We're growing like big ass silicon carbide rocks.
Sorry, the image of Mark Zuckerberg walking into the basement of his lair, looking at his like crystal farm in a haze of like purple smoke, and being like, "I will conquer the world." I mean, like, go get it, Mark. You know, like,
very distinct image.
But you have to be that person to do this. I think.
Yeah. And that's another thing of all this that we'll get into. This is like, I think this is a device that only Meta could have built in a way that they can show to the world, because for a lot of reasons
everybody else would expect it to ship.
Yeah.
Like everybody else does hardware more often. So we'd be like, okay, but when?
I think if Meta was not a founder mode company to the fullest extent, this thing would have been killed a long time ago.
So can I read you? I just want to read you a quote from Ben Thompson, who writes a newsletter called Trickery. He tried on Orion, and he just said this thing that it just made me start laughing a lot. And I'll explain why it made me laugh so hard. Here's the quote. The difference from the Quest, and is him talking about Orion, the obvious limitations of the display, particularly low resolution, felt immaterial. The difference from the Quest or Vision Pro is that actually looking at reality is so dramatically different from even best-in-class pass-through that holographic video quality doesn't really matter. Even the highest quality presentation layer will pale in comparison to reality.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, this is very funny. He's presenting this as like right, and it's Ben, and that's how he writes, and that's fun. But if you'll recall, my review of the Vision Pro was looking at displays sucks. Like, this is the end of the road for video pass-through. If you want to put a screen in front of your head in a VR headset and then do camera-based pass-through, this is as good as it will ever be, and it is nowhere near good enough. At the time, many people disagreed with me. I believe that I have been proven to be correct about the value of the Vision Pro over time. Still not pleased with myself that I gave it a 7.
7 out of 10.
so it goes. But like, this is the thing, right? Meta built the displays, they grew the crystals. Zuckerberg is like, I'm spending the money. I can't be fired because I own super voting shares of this company. Here it is. I made the displays. When you say it's not a product, did he make the rest of it? Like, is the software good?
There is an OS.
Right.
So I guess I'll just quickly explain like how we got to where we are. They started developing this about 10 years ago. This is like Zuckerberg's big bet to maybe control the next computing platform if you buy into the idea that face computers are maybe that. In 2022, it became, I think everyone remembers, the year of efficiency. Meta stock was not doing as well. They were cutting back budgets, and they decided, looking at how expensive it was going to be to create Orion, I'm told that the cost to build is somewhere around $10,000 per pair. And that the display stack, especially the lenses, the silicon carbide, was just not something that would scale. They decided to make it a prototype internally. And then there was debate after that of, okay, do we show it to the world at all? Is it good enough? And I mean, a thing that stuck out to me that Boz, the CTO, told me was like, we just we just didn't think this was going to work at all. When we set out to build this, we thought maybe a 10% chance we actually get to a working device. And I think he literally said, I was just like, holy shit, it works. Like, and I think they were amazed that it works. And so they started in earnest on the software stack like 3 months ago, deciding that they were going to show it off at Connect. So it does have an OS. They have pretty concrete ideas, especially on the interaction elements of it, which we'll get into. The software is bare bones. They've got some demo apps. They had Instagram. You and I did a call over Messenger, Nilay. They've got a web browser. But these are like the early primitives of how you would bring 2D experiences into 3D space. It's like it's like Vision Pro. It's like a floating pane. I think the work they're doing now that they have a working kit is in the next couple of years. How do you actually make uniquely 3D augmented type interfaces? Which is like, you just have to have the thing on your face. You have to be able to use it. And for the longest time, this hasn't been something that even resembles an actual pair of glasses. Like the thing they showed me that it was, even like in 2022, it had like a backpack. I mean, it was just the iteration they've done, even in just the last couple of years, is pretty remarkable. Yeah. So yeah, the software had enough ideas in it to where I went, okay, they have ideas of where this is going. It's still super rough, but like the AI stuff especially, it's compelling.
What all did you get to actually do in the headset?
Yeah, we did, web browsing, video calling, basic kind of Instagram stuff, calling in a 2D HD pane, which like Nilay beamed in that way, and I could see him. He couldn't see me because there's all these things in Orion that they just turned off because they decided to not make it a product. Like they have inward facing cameras that could potentially map your face to an avatar to show someone, and they just have them turned off because like it's not being used for that now.
Yeah, but they could also just look like garbage.
Yeah. So we did that. Some Meta employees came in as avatars, like floating, like think of the Horizon Quest avatar style, but like
legs or no legs?
Legs and like full body scale across the room.
$10,000 a leg is what I'm told.
Yeah. And then we did like a code. They have their hyper realistic kind of uncanny valley codec avatars. Someone called in as one of those as well. And then there were some games, and the games were actually, I've done a lot of really kind of, I would say, just gimmicky AR games in my career. And the games were actually decent, like the interactions, because they've nailed a lot of the interaction elements and input elements of the glasses. The game experience was actually surprisingly good. And they have some connected ones where like you scan a QR code, you're in this Pong game immediately with someone else wearing the glasses who just scanned it. And that's how I did it with Zuckerberg in the video you can see on all of the Verge's channels. He beat me, of course, in Pong.
Did they have a laser tag game? That's my AR dream.
Yeah, that would be cool. They had this kind of Space Invaders-esque game where your head was move the ship, and the band, which we'll talk about, was the lasers for the ship.
So here's what I'm curious about. They've built a lot of stuff in the Quest, right? Like they've taken Android, they've built an entire operating system. Mm-hmm. They have a store. A lot of that is complete. And I've always assumed, based on what Mark and others have said, is that they're doing all that work there in that form factor, and that lets them build the software experiences. And then they're building the Ray-Bans and the other form factor. And then, Orion is like the goal. Mm-hmm. Are they using any of the stuff from the Quest? Like any of the user interface gestures, is it Android? Like,
yeah, it's Android based. It's a similar kind of app launcher UI. The thing with the app launcher though that's different is like it's much more minimal, and your finger gesture brings it up and then takes it away just as quickly. They're very different products. I mean, the avatar was the same as what you would see on like a Quest game.
But I'm just getting at, Zuck has laid out the idea that like the Meta Ray-Bans are on one side of the spectrum and the headset is on the other side, mm-hmm. where this is not the right form factor, but I can do everything in it. And the Ray-Bans are the right form factor. I can't do anything in them hardly. And in the middle are these glasses, right? And these products are going to converge towards the glasses. Mm-hmm. So it just seems interesting to me that they haven't used all the stuff from the Quest, because that was the plan that they sort of articulated.
Well, like I said, they started doing the software for this like 3 months ago.
Sure.
And I will say the coolest thing, David, to your earlier question that we did was this Meta AI thing where they laid out all these ingredients for a smoothie on a table. They gave me the prompt, which means they tuned it a little bit, right? But
there's just a guy in the background being like, all right.
no, I messed around with it to know that it was a model running, but
It wasn't Tom Brady being like, all right, smoothie, go.
Yeah, but it was like I asked it to make a smoothie out of the ingredients and it popped up like a recipe pane above me with I could like click through the different steps.
Can I just quickly be the turd in the punch bowl on this particular demo? Because I've seen a bunch of people talking about this particular demo, and I am so spectacularly unimpressed with that demo. And I would like you to tell me why I'm wrong. So first of all, if you go look at that demo, every single thing on that table says what it is with big ass letters. And you know it's a really easy thing to do. It does. The bag of dates says dates in big ass letters. And the box of matcha says matcha in big ass letters. Like, those are not hard computer problems to solve.
It recognized
If you're listening to this in your
David.
car, I want you to know that right now Alex Heath is scrolling through a picture to confirm or deny that the bag of dates says dates on it.
There are two things on the table that don't say in words what they are on the box. It's the banana and it's the pineapple. And it identifies the banana, which is, again, a really easy thing for a computer to do. And it misses the pineapple entirely.
Again, I'm just putting this out there. So if you're listening, you know, when you're on a Google Meet call with someone and their face instantly goes to I'm browsing the web face. Yeah. I've never seen anyone move to I'm browsing the web face as fast as Alex did when David said everything had a label.
Well, okay, you're right. So, David.
Big box that says dates on it is not a hard computer problem to solve.
David, so the pineapple, it missed in the video I did with Zuck. It got it right the first day I did it.
Okay, that's good. That's encouraging.
So,
You've
yes,
still picked the two most distinctive fruits that you could have possibly picked. I'm just saying, this demo is the easiest possible version of this demo, and still it gives you a recipe that involves not everything on the table and a bunch of stuff you don't have on the table. So I get to the end of that demo and I'm like, what problem did we just solve?
David, I fully agree with your big point. Like, yes, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors here. The bar is also low. What they were trying to communicate is like, oh, what happens when you have the visual AI in the Ray-Bans with a display? And so what I'm talking about is not the fact that it recognized everything right or wrong. It's just this idea of like that visual AI with a display. And then, I can actually I don't have to just listen to the recipe. I can see it and I can move it around and I can make it big.
That was cool. The thing in the demo where it popped up above it saying what each thing was, I actually thought was that's a really cool little bit of UI, that it was like, this is the cacao. Never mind that there was a box that said cacao right underneath the label. But still, I actually thought the UI was very cool for what amounted to a not particularly impressive problem. So looking at it as here is how you do this, I think is actually very clever. I just was so so many people were like, oh my God, the smoothie thing. And it's like, did we actually do anything here?
Also, to make a smoothie, you just dump everything.
Yeah, I was going to say,
push the button.
Yeah, it's a blender. Chuck
blender.
it in. It'll be fine.
So there's a technique here that the AI is going to walk you through. You hit pulse a couple times and then you hit play.
Yeah, it should have showed us you make bread.
So on the smoothie thing, just really quick, I kind of freaked out, not because of how crazy I thought it was that it correctly identified a pineapple the first time, David. They had been doing all these little Easter eggs for me throughout I spent a full day at Meta and I'd done a bunch of other demos before this. And they were dropping little things all throughout my demos. The text that came up in the glasses was an employee being like, hey, I've got the scoop for you on the next AR glasses. I need to go step out of the room to not get caught. And then by the time I got to the smoothie, I make smoothies every morning. And so I thought, I was like, do they have cameras in my house? I got to the point, I just turned around to the room because there's 12 people in the room. And I'm just like, are you guys watching me at home?
Are you listening to me on my phone? Just say yes or no.
Yeah. It was, the smoothie thing felt special. And so I was actually very disappointed to see that everyone got the smoothie demo, but that's okay.
So I want to come back to whether the demo is real or fake and the debate about what the word vaporware means. But you talked about the control band, the wristband several times. Let's explain that real quick first, because there's a part of this where the neural wristband is the most ready to go product, which is fascinating in and of itself.
Kind of the coolest, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's one part of the dream for sure.
It's very clear that the band is done. I also know this because they're releasing a pair of glasses with a very small heads-up display. It's not full AR that will use the band, I'm pretty sure, next year. It was very clear that the band is done. And that's why I spent more time in the story than I originally thought writing about the band. Also because it was genuinely, I think I said this in the video, it was one of the coolest experiences with a new piece of technology I've ever had. because there's no calibration. You put it on, you go through the gestures, and it has this haptic feedback in the band that kind of reinforces when you're doing it correctly. I did that for like 10 seconds and I was just flying through the thing. And to the point where I had to take them off at one point and put them back on and like go back through the setup. And I just did it on my own. And like, it just clicked so fast and it's so precise. And yeah, it uses EMG, electromyography, and it's not reading your thoughts, but it's interpreting neural signals through the movements of your wrist and translating those into input in the glasses. And Meta bought a startup that we have covered extensively. I believe Addy covered this even before they sold to Facebook. This was like in 2019, Control Labs. And it's this tech. And it's really powerful. I think they've stumbled onto something here that I haven't seen for headsets, which is how do you control them without putting your hands out in front of you? You know, like I used the spectacles, which rely on just hand tracking the week before. And I was thinking when I was like flying to Meta the next week, like in my airplane seat, it's like, you're not going to stick your hands out like in an airplane seat to control your glasses.
Well, North glasses did that too, right? They had like a ring that they used to control it.
Yeah, it was like a joystick on a ring.
It was
Yeah.
it wasn't.
But it was cool.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
but
is
it wasn't
like
moving your hands out
Yeah.
in front of you.
this is like hyper precise click like input that you can do with very, very small hand gestures in your pocket or behind your back. And I like audibly gasped when I started using it.
Well, this is like cool technology we've seen for ages, right? Like,
Well, Control Labs has been around, but
yeah, like Control Labs. We've seen like horrible products from small startups using this stuff before, but it's also like just regularly used in prosthetics now, particularly like hand prosthetics and arm prosthetics to give that movement. So it's really cool to see it come to consumer products.
Yeah, I've never
Hopefully.
seen EMG in a consumer product. So it was
There's
really
like
cool.
one in 2014. It's called like the Frog or something. Does nobody remember this?
No.
I swear that there
face
was a
when everyone
real
immediately
product.
starts Googling?
Yeah, we were like, that's
Yeah.
my face right now.
No, but Alex, the thing you said in your story that most got me was the moment where you're like you had your hands in your jacket pockets and you're
Yeah.
controlling the thing. And that's the moment where you're like, oh, this is obviously the correct answer for this.
Yeah.
And I think I'm fascinated by the whole kind of kit that they put together where it's the glasses, there's the wireless compute puck that feels like you put it in like your jacket pocket or your backpack or your back pocket or whatever, and then it's the band.
Yeah.
And I think at least for now, that strikes me as like the exact right three parts in the right way. I think like the Vision Pro's cable thing is wrong. The only hand motions that the cameras can see in front of your face is wrong. Like I honestly believe Meta got that part of this thing like exactly correct. And it just feels like you instantly are like using it in a way that feels way more natural than even like Nilay's experience with the Vision Pro, where you like you still have to sort of keep your hands on like the front plane of your body and in view, and that is just an amount of thinking that you don't have to do with this, and that feels much better.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to talk about the puck, just I guess on the band though too. What Meta hopes is that over time the band becomes its own platform, and that it interfaces with appliances, it interfaces with your car, other gadgets. And the idea is like, this is probably a 10 to 15 year out thing, honestly, for it to really,
It interfaces with your car.
Yeah. So the idea is like, you're walking around with these glasses, you look at your car and you want to start the engine as you're walking up to it. You do a little tap because it sees that you're looking at your car. The band is connected. There's an API. You're logged in. And you turn your AC on, or you turn
This is the idea of a man who can grow crystals in the basement of his mansion.
Well, it's honestly, it's there's several leaps to get there. It's not like the ecosystem of it all will be tough to develop until there's scale with these glasses. But it's pretty obvious to think about, okay, if I'm wearing contextually, spatially aware glasses at all times, and I'm walking around my house and I look at my thermostat and I want to change the setting, why can my band not, because it's all connected, why can my band not adjust the thermostat? And that's the idea they have. I think it's a really
can't
cool
I
idea.
turn reality into a bitmap display with windows and a mouse? But
with a camera and a controller and good enough processing, you can get a pretty long way towards that.
Yeah. So people will see the band soon, like next year. And I
got to do an update real fast.
Yeah.
I found the band. It was called the Mayo. It cost $200. They first started reporting on it in 2013, came out in 2016, and you wore it like on the middle of your forearm.
Oh, sure, yeah.
To control your laptop.
And also
your
to keep the sweat away from you while you play tennis.
No, it's so ugly.
I remember this thing. I tried this thing.
The thing looks like a bala bangle.
It really does.
And it uses EMG, Kranz?
Yeah, it used EMG. Like that particular technology, the EMG technology, has been around a while. We've seen it in other stuff, but it's always like been kind of nobody's gotten the software part of it right. And those
the form factor. It looks like a Fitbit. Yeah. Like this thing is not bulky and it just sits
this
on
looks
your wrist.
cool.
Did you have to wear it tightly around your wrist?
It's tight, but it's not like there are sensors that indent a little bit into your skin, but it wasn't like uncomfortable. I wore it. I left the demo room with it still on to go interview Zuckerberg, and like they came running after me and were like, "You still got the band on? Please let us keep that." So if we're talking about the three parts of this, I guess on the puck, I just David, I agree with you that this feels like the right combination for now. They obviously don't want the puck to be in the picture long term.
Sure. But I think we're a long way away from that.
Yeah. They made the decision, which I think is the correct call, is that they want the glasses to be as light as possible and to not burn your face, which is, what I've experienced a lot. Not literally burning, but just they get really hot. And so they made the decision to offload most of the app logic onto the puck. They invented their own Wi-Fi protocol. And it has to be 12 to 13 feet max away at all times or the glasses just don't work. And
why do we call it a puck and not a computer?
I mean, why do they call them glasses and not a computer? I don't know.
Yeah, but like
is it a circle?
Yeah. It's like, it looks like one of the big like iPhone brick chargers you could like put on the back of the iPhone with like MagSafe, like a big ass anchor.
Yeah. It looks like you could put it in your back pocket, but you want to wear a belt.
Okay.
I could put it in my back pocket because I have huge back pockets, but yeah, I mean, the idea is like
Jinkos? Did we just learn something
weird
about
flex.
You? All right.
Yeah.
I know you live in LA, but like how bad has it gotten over there?
It's pretty bad. So the puck is the right trade-off to make because these glasses only weigh 98 grams, whereas the Vision Pro is like 5-6x that. And like I said, I wore them for 2 hours and I never felt like uncomfortable. And the funny thing about the 2 hours, I was informed as we were wrapping, like, there's a bunch of Meta employees in the room. I think I was the second journalist ever to try them. I've also written about these extensively. So they were really like on edge, and they, towards the end, like I took them off and I could just hear everyone like breathe a sigh of relief. And they were like, you just broke the record for longest demo. Actually longest continuous wear of them at 2 hours. We were like, yeah, we thought they would just like crap out by now. So that was
there a battery indicator or anything?
No, there wasn't. And they didn't swap them out or anything.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You wear glasses.
Yeah.
How heavy versus the ones you're wearing now, which seem fairly light?
Like you notice, but like I have a pair of chunky LA glasses that honestly felt in the same ballpark.
Okay.
Like
it wasn't too heavy because like it was on the ears. It was just those earpieces are
no pressure
so
on
big.
the ears. I mean, if anything, it's a little in the front of your face. And the thing that struck me was, they told me definitively like the frames will be half as thick in the consumer version, which means
wait, that's it. That's my cue to argue with you about vaporware. Okay, so just let's describe the product that you saw, which is a very impressive demo, right? Lots of people saw the demo. Everyone is suitably impressed. Great. Mm-hmm. The thing that they accomplished that no one else has been able to accomplish is getting that display to work in that form factor. 98 grams on your face, 2 hours of battery life. You can look at reality through the lenses, and it will put, from what I understand, labels above boxes of cocoa. Yeah. That's wonderful. Mark Zuckerberg can play along with you. They had, right? They've iterated it and developed the existing EMG control band. Mm-hmm. We put a computer in a giant battery and are sending signals from it wirelessly to something else. Challenging because I got to do it in real time, but right, a thing that existed. We put it all together in a product and we sell it far, far away, right? Like I'm giving them credit for a bunch of stuff. Some stuff they iterated, some stuff they bought, some stuff they had to build from scratch and spend billions of dollars that basically no one else has managed to crack yet. All great. It's a long way from here to there.
3 years.
So that's their promise. And so like, the thing I always say is like, it's a vapor till it ships. And Meta has the extraordinarily opportunity to show a thing that isn't shipping. Right, like they're all proud of it. You can see they're bursting with pride. They, in particular, built a display technology they can demo for 2 hours with a variety of people doing stuff that no one else has been able to do. Magic Leap, hacking the GPU of your brain, I think, is the closest to this. And they had people sitting down next to a box the size of a refrigerator, and they couldn't ship it. What is the and Meta doesn't have to do that, right? They're selling the Quest. They make a bunch of money selling ads. They got Kristen Bell being an AI voice. They have a whole business that's running that can subsidize this thing. It's still vapor, in my opinion. Like, they have to ship it. They're just able to be confident that they've gotten this far. But it's unclear to me what this actually looks like as a product. Because I sincerely doubt it will have a wireless compute puck and like, once they start shipping the neural wristband, it won't take on a life of its own in some other way, and it will be completely divorced from the Quest ecosystem. It's just like there's a set of unanswered questions here that I think it's very tempting to pre-answer or imagine, and that honestly is the fun part, and I'm excited to do some of that with all of you. But it's also like 3 years is a long time. A lot of things can change in 3 years, and a lot of other things have to go right. Like the lenses in your story, they are planning to ship regular lenses, right? They're going to go from silicon carbide to glass.
Well, they wouldn't tell me the material. And the truth is that they're parallel pathing like 4 or 5 different options. So they're
right. But if your big innovation is the display and you're like, we have 4 options to bring this display to market, you actually haven't picked.
I think you're being simplistic when you say display, because the display is the projectors, the waveguides, and the lenses. The lenses specifically are what they can't manufacture in a cheap enough way at scale. So the lenses will be different. The projectors are on the path of what I saw going to be the same kind of technology. They invented them, from scratch. Mm-hmm. The waveguides, the same. They wouldn't tell me what the lenses are, not because I don't think they don't know necessarily, but because they haven't fully decided, because they're locking these things in on like a timeline that is aggressive, but also they don't want to speak before they, like, if they would have said, let me back up. Like, they decided to not ship Orion 2 years ago. So the timeline for this hardware stuff is farther out. When they say, this is coming in a few years, it's not like we have not set anything up for this to happen in 3 years. They have. They're on a, believe me, heads will roll if there is not a consumer version of these AR glasses in a few years.
Well, sure, but those are the stakes. The stakes are either we're all double clicking on cars, to see what happens, or heads will roll. Like I don't want to shy away from the stakes.
Yeah.
But the part of me that says it's great to imagine how these products might work, especially products that are meant to deliver AI as a new platform that replaces smartphones. On balance, I don't believe you, and it probably doesn't work, is like the right answer. And the fact that they got the display to work, which no one else has ever achieved, as far as I can tell, is incredible. Now comes like an incredible hard part.
Okay, but let's talk about these lenses though, because like the lenses is part of the magic of these things, right? Like they went with this really expensive product to do this, to have the best light refraction and stuff. And that's because that material exists in the world. I mean, it doesn't, very little of it exists in the world. They usually make it all, but like they have to do all of that. Now they're going to have to go to a whole different thing, which presumably would have a lower price, but similar qualities. And that seems not like an engineering, but like a science problem. And that seems like a big science problem for them to have.
I don't think they see it that way. I think
I'm sure they don't.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, look, here's what they told me the consumer version will be. The frames will be about half as thick. The projector technology will be very similar, will be in line with what I saw. The waveguides will. The field of view, which was 70 degrees, which is super wide, will be slightly smaller, but not like dramatically. And the puck will exist. The band will exist. Like, It's just the lenses that they, I think, are looking at a few options, and they don't have to make the call right now, so they're not committing to it. And on the why they're not using silicon carbide and why they did it in the first place is they told me they had hoped that the rest of the industry, whether it was other companies doing AR headsets or even the EV industry, for example, which hasn't grown in the last 5 years, I think, as everyone thought it would maybe 5 years ago, which is when they began the manufacturing of Orion in earnest. They thought the rest of the industry would go to silicon carbide and build up the economies of scale with them. And they ended up being the only company that was trying to do this.
So that's like a really interesting bet, right? You think Apple and Google and Samsung are all going to go forward, invest in a technology, and you'll just be able to catch the tailwind, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, they thought economies of scale would make silicon carbide more efficient and less costly to produce, and that didn't happen. I mean, Boz told me 90% of the cost is the lenses. So
yeah, because it's like having 2 diamond rings on your face.
Yeah,
right, but I'm coming back to the thing no one has solved is the displays. So whether the lenses are the key element of the displays or just they happen to have bought a lot of silicon carbide and they use them this time, like I'm curious to know like how much of the thing that they demoed is down to that lens. Because everybody's vision is the same, right? We're going to put glasses in your face. You're going to look at the world. We're going to layer digital information over the world, and then you're going to be able to take action on it. This is Apple's vision, and they couldn't build it, so they built the Vision Pro. And if Apple is like, we can't make it good enough on a timeline to sell, here's a VR headset that fakes it. Meta doesn't have to do that. Right, Meta's business is good enough to keep funneling money into this R&D project. I think I'm curious for your read on Zuck wanting to show it.
Yeah,
because I think he was just having the time of his life yesterday at Meta Connect, like showing off all the toys that he's built and like how far ahead of both Apple and Google in various ways. There were a lot of shots at Apple and Google in that keynote.
Well, wait, Nilay, you and I have paid a lot of attention to these companies this year and have talked about this. Would you bet for or against Apple having something that looks and works an awful lot like Orion and is just as expensive to make in existence in their offices right now?
I would say they probably have 500 variations of something that looks and works exactly like Orion. And Apple is not the kind of company that shows off science projects like this at all. They just won't do it. They've talked about it, right? I mean, like Tim Cook in the lead up to the Vision Pro, before the Vision Pro existed, Tim Cook was like, I'm making glasses. Like everything that he ever described was Orion. So I think Zuck loves the fact that he showed off the thing that Apple has been describing for years, well before Apple was ready to do it. I do wonder, like, when Apple's like, we need chips, they go to TSMC and they're like, we're going to buy all the chips. We're going to build you a factory, Corning, but we don't want to own it. We just want to build it for you so we have the capacity for it. You run it. We're not putting that on our books. Like, that's the level that Apple makes investments at. And I don't think they were able to pull off this form factor. And even with the Vision Pro, the form factor compromises are, like, now in retrospect, like ludicrous, right? Like the battery, like all the stuff, right? The hand tracking. I'm actually, even the Orion, right, that uses your eyes for the pointers still feels like a miss to me. That's still overloading an input with an output.
I disagree because of the band. The eyes, when they're your drag and not your click, and the click is not sticking hands up, it works pretty well. Like I thought the same thing with the Vision Pro. If you try Orion at some point, I'd be curious to hear how you think when you try it, because the eye tracking was surprisingly good with the band.
When you were having like the conversation with Nilay, were you able to also do other stuff at the same time? Like,
yeah,
because I'm just curious, like how that works. If you're like looking at him and then you need to move something over here, and that means you have to drag it. So you have to kind of like look away from him in a potentially awkward way.
You could stick your hand out and pinch it and drag it, or you could glance at it really quick, tap your fingers together to
because it does hand tracking too.
It does hand tracking, and it will merge hand tracking with all of it anytime you put your hands out.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought all this up is like Apple punted on the big problem, on the display problem, and then tried to solve a bunch of the other problems, or at least show you what a bunch of the other problems could look like if they were solved. Like hand tracking, like Windows in space, spatial compute, all this stuff. But they couldn't solve the display problem, so that you end up with the Vision Pro, even in the compromised state of the Vision Pro's form factor. Meta has solved the display problem, at least we think, in a way that costs $10,000. And we have yet to see how they will solve the rest of the problems. And that is kind of just an interesting place.
I agree.
Here's the company that could not solve the display, but they shipped the product, like the operating system and the app model and the blah, blah, blah. And then here's the company that solved the display, but can't ship it because it's too expensive. Eventually, it seems like the answer is going to be someone will get to the right answer in the middle first.
But again, I keep coming back to like Heath last year when Meta tried to front run the Vision Pro. One of the things that Zuckerberg basically said was, we could have done something as good as the Vision Pro, but it would have been as expensive as the Vision Pro, and we don't want to do that. I think it is perfectly plausible that at a bunch of other companies in the tech industry right now, there is a thing that looks and works and costs just like Orion.
And then there's whatever Snap has.
And I was going to say, the difference is there are only two companies willing to show it to people. And of those two, Meta is just absolutely kicking Snap's ass. But in a certain way, kudos to Meta for being the ones who are actually willing to be out in public, sort of showing the state of the art on what they're working on. But I genuinely wonder how far ahead it actually is, because the gap between we've made 1,000 of these and they cost $10,000 each, and we can make millions of them at a reasonable price is so much bigger than anybody ever makes it out to be, including experienced hardware companies. Like the gap between I can make one and I can make 1,000 is huge. And like kudos to Meta, they're there. But thousands to millions is a completely different thing.
Wait. But have we seen people is there an increased use of glassware in like at Google, at Apple? Like, does it just seem like more people have bad vision and thick glasses?
I mean, Google's been showing off their prototype glasses in a bunch of Google videos recently. Like that kind of look like the size and shape of Orion. Like this stuff is just out there.
I just, as the Verge's foremost phase computer expert, again, this is a cry for help. This is not a brag. I actually will push back on you guys. I do not think anyone has anything working in this form factor as a standalone kit that is not completely on rails or something on a desk that you look through. Yeah. I don't think that actually exists.
Can I, just for the sake of our own comments, can I just say a bunch of nouns so that people...
What?
HoloLens. X-Real 2 Pro Air, or whatever it's called. HTC. Other companies. Yes, I know other companies have made glasses before. I know that Alex and I have both changed spark plugs wearing a HoloLens. Like the form factor innovation here is real. Like, like getting it down to glasses. I'm not trying to take away from that. I'm just pointing at like it's vapor till it ships. Like it's just one of our rules, right? And the distance from what we see today to a product, all of the questions they have to answer in the middle. This is what I was asking at the Quest, is like they've answered a bunch of these questions with the Quest. I suspect they think that some of those answers are the wrong answers actually. And they need to go in a different way to enable some of the things they want with true AR glasses.
I think that's right. I also just think that before this week, I honestly didn't know where they were at with this in terms of how they were going to do it. And I feel like after this week, they actually have the right approach of how they're going about it, which is just relentlessly focusing on the form factor, which Meta has made a lot of hardware mistakes over the years and has, I think, just not had the right priorities in terms of what they're building and what it's for, or even understanding what it's for. It took them 10 years really to understand that the Quest is really just a gaming device, even still.
Yeah. How much do you think that's the Ray-Ban lesson?
That's part of it, but I think there's clarity here about why people would want these. And like something Zuckerberg told me was, I thought pretty illustrative of this, is like, we want them to be just as good when they're off, because we know that you're not going to have the AR on maybe most of the day. And so focusing on that first and letting the technology then kind of fill in, I think is the right approach versus just how they've approached hardware so far, which is like, let's just put as much technology in something as we can and see how people will use it. And here they're like, no, we know how people will use this. It's utility. It's like heads up, lightweight interactions, video calling, and AI. But the form factor is primary. And that's the intro of the piece. Like I walk in and I'm looking at them, I'm probably 4 feet away and you can't tell that they're AR glasses. And it's like, even that as a prototype, and I struggle with this because Nilay, it is vapor until it ships, but it's also not like it's somewhere between a mirage and a product. Like it is real. Like I touched it, I used it, but it's not productized. So seeing that and going, wow, like the form, like, and it's going to be half as thick in a few years. Like, okay, I finally see where this is going, especially with the band. And I feel like before this week, even I, as someone who's been reporting on this a lot, couldn't really see where they were going. And I think they feel so confident in where they're going and the clarity of what they're going to do that's why they shut it off this week. And also, I think Zuck just thinks it's really cool.
Yeah.
And he's right. It is really cool.
No one else has done. I'm just not taking anything away from them. No one else has pulled off the display. Like hundreds
with the form factor.
Millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, have been thrown at this problem of, can I put lenses in front of your face that can convincingly in 3D augment reality, not just show you a TV like the X-Real glasses do, and not require you to wear a HoloLens and still have no field of view. Like billions upon billions of dollars in this industry have been thrown at this problem, and only Meta has allowed people to wear it for 2 hours.
And it's not an overestimation to say that they have probably spent Snap's market cap on Orion in the last 10 years. And it's like no other company would do this. Like Apple killed the car project because it's like we don't see a realistic timeline to shipping. We're not even sure what it is. Like this is a uniquely Meta thing, and it's like a personal thing for Zuckerberg, which is just like screw Apple and Google. I'm never going through this shit again on mobile. That he's gone through.
Actually, hold right there, Alex. I want to talk about Zuck versus Apple and Google, and I want to talk about the Ray-Bans a bit, but we got to take a break. So let's take a break and then come back, and then we can talk about Zuck's war with Tim Cook. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Heath, right before the break, we were talking about Zuck, and you said he doesn't want to go through this shit again, which is, you just interviewed him for quite a long time. You saw him on stage at Meta Connect. I mean, the hair's flowing, the Latin t-shirts are in Latin. He's feeling himself. He's got a chain. He's bringing out MMA fighters for Meta Ray-Ban demos just for the hell of it at this point.
Take mine out.
He's like, I can produce the MMA lightweight champion of the world at will. Like, here he is. Get out of here. Like, it's great. It's all good. But the thing that strikes me about that is, yes, there's a politics of it, which maybe we should talk about a little bit, but he really thinks that these glasses are the next great computing platform. And he wants to win that fight more than anything. And he probably perceives that he's ahead, but put that in context of why he does not want to lose to Apple and Google.
There's so many reasons. Do you guys remember when all of Facebook's internal apps went down for like a full day and the entire company like ground to a halt?
Yeah.
Because Apple revoked its developer license?
I do.
That's just one example. There's app tracking transparency. I don't want to get into a moral debate about that, but like it objectively like killed billions of dollars of Meta's ad revenue. There's all of the app store policies that he's talked about for a very long time. Like people think of Meta as just an app developer, and they are really in terms of their business, but they came up, 20 years ago, they watched mobile happen. They tried to do a phone, failed at it. Zuckerberg has always wanted to be in control of a platform. And this is something that I think like companies that were born in the mobile era don't even really like think is possible, because it's like you just come into the reality you're in. But he knows what the reality was before mobile when he was building Facebook early on. And I think they really feel that, if Apple does glasses and the Vision Pro, people start using it and they ship a cheaper one and these become, these start selling, maybe they don't let Meta's apps on there at all. And there's this just real tension there of who has the distribution control. It's why Google pays billions of dollars to Apple to have search in Safari. Whoever controls how you access your thing ultimately has leverage over you. And Zuckerberg's been feeling that pretty acutely for 10 plus years. And so, yeah, this is as much about like inventing the future as it is correcting the past. And I don't think any company without that unique context would be doing this. And I think that's a uniquely Meta thing.
Can I just read a quote from the interview that I thought was very telling? You guys spent a long time talking about basically what AR and AI are going to do to the next generation of gadgets. And then what he says is, for what it's worth, I also think that all the AI work is going to make phones a lot more exciting. Blah, 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 AI is cool. If I were at any of the other companies trying to design what the next few versions of iPhone or Google's phones should be, I think that there's a long and interesting roadmap of things that they can do with AI that as an app developer, we can't. Yep. Like, to me, that's the whole thing, right? He's like, if I am convinced that if Meta had its way, the puck wouldn't exist on Orion. The puck would be your phone.
Yes.
That's what those companies want. And they just can't do it because the only companies that are ever going to be allowed to do it are Google and Apple. And so if I'm Mark, I'm like, oh, a gigantic part of what I am doing should be tethered to this thing that I'm just not allowed to touch. And that would piss me off.
They're so mad that they can't automatically sync photos off your Ray-Bans into your iPhone camera roll.
Yes.
They can do it on Android.
It's super annoying.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, they can do it on Android because the APIs are there. Android's a little looser. iOS, no. Like the reason the first Ray-Bans also had a lot of issues, they had a lot of Bluetooth pairing issues and like limitations with what they could do with Apple. And Apple is, because of the EU, gradually being forced to open up its APIs. But yeah, they're pissed they can't sync photos to a camera roll.
But why doesn't Meta complain more, I guess? Like we saw this with Epic. No, but they complain all the time. We saw Epic put their money where their mouth is. Like, does Meta do that? It doesn't seem like they do.
Well, Meta's also monopolistic.
Yeah, I was like, is it because they know that like Lena will be like, yeah, that's true. Yeah. We are.
I mean, and this is what I mean by the politics of it all. And Alex, in your talk, like Mark just there's just hard shots at the EU like throughout your interview, where he's like, they should figure out what they want. And it's like, dude, what they want is like slightly better Bluetooth on iPhones. Right? They want to open interop between messaging platforms. And so that is bad for WhatsApp. Like straight up, I think they're trapped between, we would love for you to kick open the doors on iOS, but also don't do that to any of our platforms that have the same kind of restrictions.
Well, they're being forced to do interop with WhatsApp, like we just wrote about. You're going to be able to message people outside of WhatsApp. Yes, there's truth to what you're saying. I would argue like Apple is still super locked down and it's opening up over time, but I don't think they think Apple will open up soon enough. And so it's like, we need to just invent the next thing.
Well, and I think my read of this is that if you're Meta, the easiest way to get where you're going would be to start all of this cool AR stuff as an accessory to your phone, right? And the reason that the Ray-Bans have worked is that they are an accessory to your phone. They're a vastly underpowered accessory to your phone just because of what they're allowed to do, but also the restrictions of the technology and stuff. But like the 1.5 step of this transition, you would want to be your phone becomes the computer, and then you have a bunch of new wearable accessories that you use. You're just not allowed to build that. And so what all these companies have to do is basically like engineer a giant societal shift out of nowhere, because the like gradual change that actually would make this make sense is just walled off to all but two companies on the planet. And if I were anybody but one of those two companies, I would be really pissed about that.
So what has Zuckerberg done? He has gone and linked up with the Italians and the French, because it's technically Ellisor Luxottica, the parent company of Ray-Ban, is French and Italian. But what did you think, Nilay, of his comment? So they've just done a 10-year deal with Ellisor Luxottica. The idea is that Meta's tech stack is something Ellisor will be able to put into any of its lines. It owns a ton of brands, Oakley, Ray-Ban.
It's a monopoly.
It's a monopoly of eyewear.
You and I are both wearing glasses made by them right now, presumably.
Yeah. Pull over in your car. Look at your glasses. Probably made by Luxottica.
They just bought Supreme, so Supreme glasses. He confirmed in an interview that they're buying a stake in Ellisor Luxottica, which was news. But his comment about, he thinks that Ellisor will be for Europe and smart glasses what Samsung was for Korea and phones.
Incredible.
What do you think about that, Nina?
Oh, interesting.
It's a good line.
It's a great line. It is extraordinarily presumptuous in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Like, if you're at Samsung, you're like, yo, we were Samsung before.
We make ships.
Like our nuclear reactor division is doing just fine. So that is confusing. But what he means is Android is the operating system enabled Samsung to enter the mobile phone market Samsung is now even more Samsung than it was before. I would point out, by the way, a Saturday Samsung alert. If you are a Vergecast listener, you know that Samsung required all of its executives to work 6 days in the office to insert a sense of urgency and crisis into the company. They don't make anything, so all they can do is come up with deals. They cut the price of one of their gaming monitors by 50% and gave you not one but 2 TVs for free if you buy one. Incredible. It's on the website. Saturday Samsung, everybody.
You had to go on that tangent. You had to.
It's just incredible. Every part of Saturday Samsung is better than the last. But like what he's saying is there was a hardware vendor in Samsung, and Android came along, provided it the operating system and the opportunity to go address the world market, and now they are Samsung.
Yeah.
Again, extraordinarily presumptuous in the best way. Are you saying that EssilorLuxottica is a hardware maker, and our something is the operating system that will let you go become Samsung? Well, you're missing some key components, right? EssilorLuxottica doesn't make chips. Samsung makes fucking DRAM. They're like the hardware maker. They make OLED displays and chips. The first processor in iPhone
batteries.
was a Samsung ARM processor, right? So like the industry was built on top of Samsung from the jump.
I'm pretty sure I'm looking at these new transparent Ray-Bans they announced. I'm sorry, Tom Warren, translucent Ray-Bans.
Heath really ran into like, I work with a bunch of nerds this week.
Yeah. And I think it's a Qualcomm chip inside, actually.
I'm just saying like all of that, like Samsung's latent capabilities were brought together because Google provided them an operating system that let them become dominant in phones.
Yeah.
Maybe Microsoft could have provided an operating system. You remember Samsung made a bunch of weird Windows phones in the early days. But does Luxottica have chips and RAM, or does it just have design chops and retail distribution? I think that whole comment was basically another like shot at the EU, because the big criticism of all the EU regulatory stuff is the United States, deeply weird, libertarian, unregulated United States makes the tech companies and you make the taxes. And all you have is Spotify, which only ever complains about not having access to iOS. And that basically is the shape of the complaint. We have European listeners who are going to argue with me about something or the other. It's fine. But that is the shape of the complaint from Silicon Valley. And I think Mark is saying, look, I'll take one of your companies and I'll turn them into Samsung, just get the hell out of my way. And I don't know that comparison holds up because, again, Luxottica does own everything, but instead of DRAM fabs, they own Supreme.
Yeah.
Like it's just a very different thing.
But potentially, like as the proprietor of the Nilay's insane theory of wearable bullshit,
I'm ready. I'm ready for this. If you're opening this door, I'm walking right in.
You have to acknowledge that making the DRAM and owning Supreme might be equally important in this. Like,
oh, they are. They think
You can't sit here and tell me that fiddliness and value are opposing things unless you agree that looking good on your face is important. And there are a small number of companies that are very, very good at making things that people like wearing on their face. And I think you could argue that a lot of companies in tech have tried to like acquire or develop that capability and can't do it.
There's no way Meta would have made these. There's no way they would look anything like these.
It might be easier to learn how to make DRAM as a company than to learn how to be cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, can we just clip that line and just put it on TikTok and just let it live its own life?
I sincerely believe that.
Like the next
history
100 years,
of technology says
David
that is
Pierce,
probably true.
Easier to make DRAM than glasses that look good.
The ones that they wear, like they got just a little, right? The Orions, because they look like Buddy Holly glasses from the 50s.
Which are actually kind of coming back. Like that was another thing Zuckerberg said is like, it's kind of nice that chunky glasses are back in style. Like
this is like a Zuckerberg long game, right? Like he bought off a bunch of fashion houses in the background. And was like, make the glasses bigger. And like, it's like that scene from Devil Wears Prada.
He turned all the knobs on Instagram to make vintage cool again. And now it's back.
Exactly. I mean, he's right. He's right. I was at the Snap event the week before and I saw someone wearing what I thought were the new spectacles and they were Prada glasses.
I'm just saying, Cerulean was picked in this room for you, Alex. That's what's happening here. No, but like look, I'm saying I agree. I'm very excited to get my clear Ray-Bans on Monday.
They look so good.
They're pretty cool.
They only make them in the small size, and I have a huge head, and I'm furious about this.
You're 49 or 50 or 52.
whatever. What's the bigger? Go bigger.
52
number.
is like
60. Good, just as big as they can be.
No. 52 is like most brands are like, sorry, like.
Yeah, I know, which is why.
So you're probably a 50. I'm like a 49, 50. These are comfortable.
Stop measuring my head, first of all.
I've just been enough with you in person to kind of, map it in my mind.
I have a side hobby of head measurement.
Yeah.
It's not problematic at all. I'm just saying as big as they can get. And I know Boz has an equally sized noggin. And I know that he should have built the bigger ones because the regular ones come in 2 sizes and these only come in medium. But I'm getting them on Monday. I'm very excited. It's the first time I've got them. I think the clear ones look sick. I'm excited to do all the stuff with them. The jump that I'm curious about, right? Because now Meta AI is more conversational. It can remember things. They've added some capability to it. That's all running in their cloud still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you talk to the glasses, it talks to your phone, it uses your phone's connection.
They've got a decent amount that's on device now.
On the glasses, on device.
Yeah. Because they're doing with Llama these super fine-tuned distilled models. So the latency on these is like pretty incredible in terms of how quick the AI is. It's not humane pin, wait a minute to set a timer. It's like answer something in like a second, right? Or like tell me what's in this photo and it does it in a couple seconds. And I got the demo of the new AI stuff that they're adding to the Ray-Bans. So did Kylie, so did Jay. And it's like, wow, okay, they're understanding this form factor and what's unique about it. So being able to like look at a phone number and say, call that phone number, and it just calls it and the call comes in on your glasses because it's paired to your phone. Or scan that QR code like you're looking at a menu, the web page for the menu just gets sent to your phone. Like breaking down some of the interactions you would do with a phone that require extra steps and like just like taking a step away is like a kind of an aha moment when you do it. You're like, oh, like this is where it's going. Yeah. And it's the first time that I feel like AI makes sense in a wearable. And did you guys watch the keynote in the live translation demo that Zuck did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when he brought out the MMA fighter.
Yeah. He said, yell some words at me in Spanish.
That is wild. That is wild. Yeah. That is like Putin's earpiece on stage, like at scale, for like anyone. And it works. And
it was a thing like Google promised a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I think that the really interesting part of this is these ideas are all just the ideas. Like these are the demos we have been hearing about or promised for a decade, if not more, right? Live translation. Like Apple has live translation on your iPhone. You just open the app and it'll do it. Google can do it. It's the form factor, like you're saying, Alex, that like, okay, we've put this in glasses. Your phone is away. There's no screen. There's just an ambient computer, another thing that has been promised for 1 billion years. And it's just paying attention and helping you out as you go through your day. Does that ambient computer require sending an awful lot of data to Meta? It sure does, right? It just really, really does. But that's the trade-off. All the way down to one day, I'm guessing Orion will have my dream feature, which is I will look at someone and it will tell me their name.
Yes.
And that will absolutely require Meta searching its gigantic worldwide surveillance database of names and faces. But like they're going to build
the technical name.
I was waiting for you to bring this up in my Orion demo. The VP of wearables at Meta said, we're excited about name tags.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is the feature. If you can do name tags, it doesn't matter. I will wear the backpack.
Yeah.
Right? Like all day long.
Everybody at CES.
I want to double click on what you said, like that the phones have live translation, because I think this is important when we're talking about like these form factors. Yes, they do. Like, especially iOS 18, it's really easy to just do like live language translation from the action button. There's something about not having your phone out though, that feels like, oh, I would actually use this. I like think about like talking to someone in another language and holding your phone between you. It's like an interview. Like it's just awkward. But it's like, oh wait, when this is in a form factor where like they can't even hear that what they're saying is being translated to me in my language, and I'm not even pulling a device out, like all of a sudden these features make sense as like something you would use in the world. And I think that's what these mean. Like these, it's like taking all these concepts and like putting in a device that like, oh, like you'd actually do this.
Yeah, because they are cuter than the Pixel Buds. No disrespect.
Well, so here, they're just, again, the ideas, the end state, the goals, very familiar. Everybody shares them. The demos as described, very familiar. Everybody has the same ones. it's really down to where is the form factor? How fast can we get there? Can we ship it at scale? Are the phone makers, the operating system vendors going to get in our way, which is a big deal? And you're kind of like, okay, well, the closest Apple is fundamentally is AirPods.
Yeah.
Right? Like fundamentally, the closest they are to this kind of idea is AirPods. They haven't put glasses on their face yet. They have an Apple Watch, but it doesn't really do any AR stuff.
Yeah.
They have pinchy pinch. You can.
I mean, honestly, every
tap
time
away with an Apple Watch.
I wear my Meta Ray-Bans, the number one feeling I have is, boy, I wish this actually tied in with my phone so I could use Siri, because then I would have access to all my stuff.
Yeah. Siri could just text the wrong person at any point.
I could just play my music.
Okay, so that's that. So it's AirPods for Apple. Alex, you were just bringing up the Pixel Buds.
Yeah.
That is Google's, although does Google remember that it made the Pixel Buds?
It made the Pixel Buds too, which...
Sure.
Nilay.
Yeah, the review came up the same time the Metal event.
So Nilay, AirPods, great example. With my AirPods, I can say, hey, remind me about whatever. I can say whatever I want it to remind me about at a certain time, right? And I'll get the notification in the Reminders app. With the Ray-Bans, you can say, hey, look at this and remind me about it at whatever time.
Right, because it can see.
Yeah. That's wildly useful to me. I cannot tell you how many times throughout the day I just want to have a snapshot of whatever I'm looking at and go back to it later. And like those ideas, because you literally have a camera on your face, you can't do that with AirPods. And so you're right. Like the closest we have are these earbuds that are internet connected and can hear our voice. There's something about adding the cameras though that's big.
So, the prevailing theory of why the camera control button is not just on the Pro phone, but also on the regular 16 is that Apple will add visual intelligence, and then you'll be able to quickly access the camera and look at stuff. And
well, when you say theory, you mean Apple just said that out loud in that many words.
Well, they haven't shipped it yet. It's vapor till it ships.
No, but I mean it's whether it's good or not is a question. But like that is clearly half the purpose of the thing. Like they have just said as much.
At this point, my theory, like whether Apple has its own unified theory of what it's doing, is like,
sure.
I've used Control Center and iOS 18 enough to be like, did anybody pay attention to this? Like,
but also there are increasingly convincing and well-sourced rumors about things like AirPods with a camera, which what would that look like? And an Apple Watch with a camera. Because I agree with you, Heath. Like the camera is the thing. Both as the input and as like the activity, right? Like I hear from people all the time for whom the reason to have the smart glasses is to take pictures of your kids, like, or your pets or whoever. Like I'm convinced my dog knows when I take out my phone to take a picture of her. I'm 100% sure. And she runs away and now she doesn't anymore. And I can take a picture of her. It's awesome.
I can't wait to get these glasses. Did you buy the glasses too, David?
I already have 2 pairs. Okay. I don't have a great answer for why I have 2 pairs.
Do you have like the large size or the small size? Because if you don't need the large size, I'm in the market.
I don't know. I also have a big head, so we'll have to figure this out together.
Alex, how big do you think David's head is? What do you think? 49?
I'm going to
50?
guess he's like a 48, 47.
Neil has like a 65.
Yeah, I'm saying bigger the better. It's not insulting to me. 80. Let's go. The bigger the better. All right. So we talked a lot about the Meta stuff. I want to make sure we talk about 2 other pieces of Meta Connect that are important, and then spend a little time in OpenAI before we go to lightning round. The other piece of Meta Connect that I think is deeply fascinating is you guys did talk about AI a lot and how it will be expressed. It seems like they're chasing a big distribution advantage with glasses that maybe other people will catch up to. But then there's like training data and open source models. Zuckerberg said, and I think this is one of the shots at Google, like I think all of the we're doing live demos were shots at Apple for doing infomercials. I think when he says things like we are the Linux of open source, because llamas are like, that's a shot at Google, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to have more distribution. We're going to have more development. We're going to be better at everybody else because open always beats closed, which is usually Google's model. And that's just not how Google's doing it. They had to suck up a lot of training data. And you asked about people wanting to opt out. There's all the celebrities on Instagram right now saying, opt me out of this. His answer, explain his answer, and then we should talk about it a little bit because it was really interesting.
Yeah. He said the quiet part out loud, which is that everyone thinks their data is more valuable than it actually is for these models. In aggregate, it's valuable, but when you're a company like Meta and it's like the entire world is your corpus of information and the internet at large, what exactly do you have to have? And I think, we were talking a lot about publishers and about how Meta's basically thrown its hands up on news. And, Rupert Murdoch is in Australia saying, pay me or I'm going to take your news off. And Zuckerberg's like, fine, like whatever, like people don't even like this. So we were talking a lot about publishers, but I think he's kind of just saying that, look, like, yes, people have feelings about their data being used to train these models. And yes, we're all doing it, but we also, like, if you don't like it, like, go away, like, whatever. It's
really interesting to me about this is that's the line to the publishers. Like, we will derank your news. We won't have news on threads, however you want to interpret all of the many things Adam Mosseri said about that. There's no opt-out for any user of these services unless you're in the EU from having your stuff trained on.
And guess where Meta AI is not available? In the EU.
Right. And he did say, I remain eternally confident that we will launch this in the EU.
Something like that.
On stage. But I would just draw a connection. I think it is very funny to dunk on people posting what amounts to chain letters on their Instagram stories, being like, Dear Zuckerberg, by the Statute of Rome, I command you from not.
We were doing this on our Facebook walls like 15 years ago.
Yeah, this keeps happening.
Yeah, this is a chain letter. Like, that's what it is. And it's like, people think the law is magic words. Mm-hmm. If you just like issue an incantation to the internet, like someone has to do what you say. It's like,
usually chain letters have a lot more like promising death in them than these.
Yeah.
And I really miss that. I wish if it was like, send this to 12 of your friends or Zuckerberg will appear in your house in his Latin shirt and beat the shit out of you. That would be great.
Have you ever fallen down the hole of courtroom videos of people invoking the sovereign citizen defense
Yes.
in like local courtrooms?
And then they're like, shut up.
And the judges are like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you're going to jail.
They're like, by what authority? And the judge is always like, because I'm the judge. And it's just like that. That's happening on Instagram. And it is very funny.
It's Michael Scott on The Office yelling, I declare bankruptcy.
It is exactly
And then somebody
that.
pulls him aside and says, that's nothing. And he goes, I didn't say it, I declared it. That's what these people are doing.
So it is very funny. And Tom Brady, who has a Meta deal to use his face for a chatbot, has done it.
He did.
They canceled the deal because that idea was bad. Yeah. And they came up with a better idea of what if we just used the celebrities' voices and said they were the celebrities instead of pretending they were other characters.
Yeah, it was Tom Brady as like Barry, your workout partner or something.
Yeah, it was
like,
very
not
confusing.
Great. Not great.
But it was his face. And then Kristen Bell, you can just chat with Kristen Bell. She put up one of these that Kylie noticed because she's a Kristen Bell fan. And so she's like, you have a deal with Meta AI and you have an Instagram post saying, don't use my stuff for Meta AI. So
that was before she saw the zeros on the check.
Yeah. Money is cool.
Yeah, they're paying for these celebrity voices.
Great.
Reportedly
they're not
millions
paying
of
for
dollars.
The rest of us.
Yeah.
So here's what I will just say about that thing. The idea that you can negotiate with Meta feels intuitive to everyone, right? Or any platform. I'm posting my stuff here. I should be able to tell you how I want you to use it. But you don't. And the answer is, well, you already signed the terms of service and you go away. You didn't, but everyone knows nobody reads that shit. When half of your users are like collectively trying to renegotiate the terms of their agreement with you, that means there's a problem. Like,
kind of. They're doing it on your platform though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's fine. But like, you can't, there's so other things in the world where like, you don't get to negotiate on this level except for weird internet terms of service that everyone agrees no one reads. Right? Like, and I would just say, like, if you are one of the many, many, many young staffers in DC who listens to this show, which is a weird audience that we have, and I love you. I'm glad that we're making the commute to your basement office in the Capitol better. You should look at all the people posting, I don't want you to train on my data on Meta's own platform. And the basic response of, yeah, go fuck yourself. And be like, oh, this is actually what regulations are for, right? Like the people are expressing that they do not like that the terms of this arrangement are not in their favor. And no one as an individual has enough power to change it. And Mark Zuckerberg is like, everyone overvalues their work in this context. So I don't have to pay attention to it. Like that is actually the problem that like it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or whatever, that thing is the problem that governments are meant to equalize.
How is this any different from using data for ad targeting? Think about when we copy and pasted protest messages on Facebook 15 years ago. What was it about? It was
I'm putting this all in the same line.
Right.
This is all in the same line of thing. My point is, when everyone is like, I signed this agreement, I didn't read it.
Right.
And now I've handed over whatever leverage I might have had because I signed this agreement that I didn't read. And the second I'm made aware that by saying abracadabra, this might go back in my favor, I will just happily start yelling abracadabra as loudly as I can. Like that's the problem.
Yeah, but that's also just like no one reads EULAs, and that's.
But like, so who should read the EULA for you? Should we
AI.
all hire? And you can't do AI. And then what? Do you have bargaining power if you disagree with the terms?
No.
If iTunes updates its terms of service and ships it to you, are you like, Tim, paragraph 5, a couple of notes.
Are you saying that social media needs to unionize?
I am saying terms of service agreements should be illegal, like flatly, because
Kristen Bell for president.
They are contracts no one reads, and it's these moments. I just have a lot of empathy. I have written the "don't believe the Instagram meme" story 5 times in my career, and one time I got a call from Instagram. They're like, "Thank you so much," and I was like, I don't like this. Because it happens over and over again for a reason, which is whenever you offer somebody back the mechanism of control over their own information, they're like, yeah, I'd like that back, please.
Yeah.
Universally.
Yep.
And no one reads the agreements. The agreements change all the time. The agreements always change in favor of the platform using your data for more and more and more things. And then you get Zuckerberg saying everyone overestimates the value of their individual data. And it's like, what is the mechanism that you would rebalance this equation with? There isn't one.
There isn't one, and I think Zuckerberg's also thinking, yeah, guess what? You're using Instagram, and you're going to keep using Instagram.
He's not incentivized to say, actually,
yeah, we should deliver more value to you.
Yeah, like he doesn't care. He's like, yeah, give me all of your data for free so I can make lots of money and afford my cool shirts. Like, of course he is.
Look, I'm not saying we all shouldn't dunk on a bunch of people posting abracadabra to Instagram. Like, we absolutely should.
We should.
It is one of the funniest repeat memes that can possibly exist. Is people basically doing sovereign citizen on Instagram. Like, very funny. But if you I'm just one step back from a place of empathy, it's a bunch of people communicating that they don't like the terms of the agreement. And there's no mechanism to channel that into any change. That agreement is not changing.
I fully agree with you. And that's how I framed it to him. I'm like, do you sympathize with this icky feeling people have about this trade-off and the sense that value is not flowing back to them? And he said the thing about how everyone overvalues their data. Well, there's also a sense of, if you feel this way, stop using the product. We were doing this about ad targeting and our data being used for ad targeting 15 years ago and copy paste messages on Facebook. Everyone's still using, well, not everyone. 3 billion people apparently are still on Facebook. So for them, it's like the platforms, they don't see any data to suggest that this value exchange is actually unfair because in their mind, we would stop using the services.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that just presumes that people have that power and
what do you mean?
Can afford to do that.
Delete Instagram?
Yeah, I would say these things are businesses for a lot of people, right? Like this is a way they advertise their businesses.
Sure.
This is a way they advertise themselves if they're influencers.
But most people in the Verge's newsroom are no longer posting on X. Like people can make decisions about the apps.
People
that they
can,
post on,
and I think
even when they have career implications.
I think there's also a lot of journalists who are still on X. I mean, I think there is a power imbalance there that Nilay is speaking to. Of like these people have no power in this relationship. It is gone. It is if you want to use this, suck it up. And I think people slowly get tired of that.
Right. I think it's just there are very few other relationships you have if you are a creator, and creators are mostly just business people at this point.
Yeah.
They're all running content businesses on the terms of the platforms. If you're a celebrity, you're just a content business on the platform, which is why I think the celebrities are so fast to be like, don't use my stuff. Like they know they do not want their voice and likeness used without payment. And all I'm saying is from a place of empathy, one step back, there's no mechanism to channel this frustration into anything. And that is actually, again, I don't think you have to be very political on either side of the spectrum to be like, oh, this is actually the thing this is what it's for. right? Like a lot of people, like most people in the society would like to renegotiate the terms of their agreement with the large platforms. That is called a privacy law, right? Where we're just going to reset the floor of the agreement. A lot of people want to reset the terms of how their content can be used for training. That's just an AI training law. Like that, it's just very simple. And like, I don't know what those laws should do or how they should read, or whether you are a conservative and you think the answer is like, I don't know, some weird public-private partnership that the Heritage Foundation runs. Like those are those ideas. Or you're a hardcore liberal and you're like, I will start a government commission and the government will set the rates, which is what we do in copyright law. Like there's a million solutions to this. I don't think that's a very liberal solution, copyright law. I'm just saying there are government entities that set rates in other parts of this world. But it's just, I would just point, like, we're talking about AI and distributing it and who has the power, where the models run, and how powerful the experiences can be that you had, Alex. And underneath it all is like, hey, do all of these people feel ripped off? Like, is that okay? And like Zuckerberg's answer is Zuckerberg's answer. I asked Sundar Pichai this about YouTube in the same kind of framework of a question. How do you feel about OpenAI training on YouTube? And he was like, I think that would be inappropriate. And it's like, do you understand why all of your creators think that's inappropriate? And he just like sighed at me. And I suspect something else is going to happen there. Like some set of lawsuits or some Scarlett Johansson OpenAI situation where it just becomes less and less tenable to be this blithe about it.
We should get off this point because we could do this for hours and we'll end up talking about the Fediverse and it'll be a whole thing.
Oh my God.
Let's do it.
But the thing is, no one has any reason to believe that any of what you just said is true. And what's actually happening is everybody is now saying the quiet part out loud. Eric Schmidt is out here being like, oh, you want data from the internet? Just steal it. Mustafa Suleyman was like, oh, it's all free. It's on the internet. You can just have it. Like, this is what everybody thinks. And there has been absolutely nothing to convince them otherwise so far. So if I'm Mark Zuckerberg, why I'm going to look around and be like, oh, I'm going to be the good guy here. And it's going to cost me in this race to AI that is suddenly the only thing anyone cares about. Like, no, of course he's not going to do that.
Right.
He's going to say, oh, you like Instagram? Keep using Instagram.
We can do this for another hour, but also his new attitude, which is like, I no longer apologize for everything. Apologizing was a 20-year mistake that I'm not going to make anymore.
No.
Dude, you grow the hair out, you get a little older, you know, like I'm thinking about growing my hair out. I watched that interview. I was like, oh, I could
Get is it the cauliflower hair? Is that what they call it?
Look, when every 12-year-old Indian boy is gifted a gold chain and you have to make a decision. And I made one decision and I'm saying I could remake that decision.
You could.
The hair is getting long. You could, yeah. I feel like you're a few months away from curls.
Oh, this hair is very curly. I could tomorrow. We're not talking about this right now. Okay. We are changing the subject.
Nilay's hair is so French and we need to go to a break.
Yeah. Can we, just before we go to break, I do want to talk about OpenAI.
Oh, yeah.
It
God.
seems like chaos over there. What is going on over there, Alex?
Did you guys know that OpenAI is a nonprofit?
Do they know that?
I'm not sure they do. I think they're finding out, and that's what's going on, honestly, like at a very high level.
But everyone's leaving. Like Mira Murati, the CTO, is leaving. Yeah. Greg Brockman, the president, apparently just vanished.
Yeah, there's this great photo of all of the like execs, Ilya, Greg, Mira, and Sam together for this big New York Times profile. This was like right before the boardroom coup, which Nilay was almost a year ago when you were at Disney.
No way.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? You were at Disney not getting to ride the rides almost a year ago because we were reporting on this, which is, yeah, nuts to me. But there's this photo of him and all these execs, and now they've just photoshopped out everyone except Sam Altman, who's the only one left. And what's happening is that OpenAI just raised the largest round of funding of all time. I think they just went above Elon's mega round for XAI, which was, I think, $6 billion on purpose, of course, optics. They're valued at $150 billion, which is more than the market cap of Goldman Sachs. Guess what? OpenAI is legally still a nonprofit. They get tax breaks in the state of California as a nonprofit. They make billions of dollars a year. And so what's happening is this very chaotic, fast transition from what was a research lab, we're going to invent AGI, all the Ilya stuff, to in the last year when Sam won the board coup, no, we are a large commercial for-profit next big mega tech company. And they hired a CFO. They hired a CPO who used to run product at Instagram, not the other one who used to run product at Instagram, who's at Anthropic. And they are very chaotically turning into a real big company. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of the previous era being abruptly managed out, quitting, what have you. And it's the Altman show. And he famously does not have equity in OpenAI, has been doing a ton of interesting dealings with other startups and investments around OpenAI. It is now reportedly going to be getting a large stake in this new for-profit company that they're creating. I will love to see what the tax implications are of this transition. More to come on that. And the state of California really doesn't like when nonprofits become for-profits. It's a very, very contested thing. And yeah, I think that's what's happening at a high level. So Mira, the CTO, is out, who was memed with her reaction to, did you use YouTube to train Sora?
Yep. They were very unhappy about that, from what I understand.
And then their head of research, who literally just did an interview about the new reasoning model with Kylie a couple weeks ago, who won out against Ilya in the research kind of group battle a year ago. So yeah, it's just like stuff's happening very fast. And yeah, big picture, this is OpenAI entering a decidedly commercial big tech company phase. They are speed running.
Should that be terrifying for us, given that they were supposed to be the safeguards of AI?
Well, yeah, now Ilya's doing super safe whatever AI. So it's going to be super safe.
But he doesn't have the money.
No, he raised $1 billion.
He raised a bunch of money.
Yeah, he raised a bunch of money.
But not as much.
No, not as much.
Yeah, not as much. But I mean, they are speed running the Facebook Google playbook, which is move incredibly fast, let regulation catch up, just outrun your competitors. And it's intense. I mean, the vibes that we hear is that working inside OpenAI is it's way different than it was a couple years ago. The pressure to ship, the pressure to make things commercial. And so that research culture that built the company originally is being just broken down. And it's very messy right now.
It's a bummer.
My sense of it, David mentioned Mustafa Suleyman earlier, who is now the CEO of Microsoft AI, is Microsoft is reacting to their former research investment becoming a product company by being like, now we have a CEO of products.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I'm very curious to see how that relationship manages over time. All right, we should take a break. We're going to go through the lightning round at lightning speed because we are so over at this point. We'll be right back with the lightning round. All right, we're back. We are so over. We are often asked how long the show is supposed to be, and the answer is not this long.
6.5 minutes.
But we're never going to tell you how long it's supposed
Actually,
to be.
a 90-second show.
We've gotten some incoming on lightning round sponsorships. Again, I don't make the deals. I just walk around Vox Media demanding why the deals aren't made, which has proven to be ineffective. So I'm going to try some new strategies. But today we remain unsponsored, which is a personal failure on my part. For somebody who complains about creator influence and brand deals as much as I do, I'm horrible at this. I should make some of that money. Anyway, the lightning round is available to sponsor. I might say your company's name if you give us a bunch of money, or I might not because of our ethics policy. You won't know until you pay me money. That's lightning round. All right, Alex, let's start with you because I think you've got the most relevant lightning round item after that previous conversation.
Yeah, Trip Mickle at the New York Times has this great story about what Johnny Ive has been up to post-Apple and this design firm he founded called Love From. Lots of nuggets in here. I thought it was very interesting that he says in the story he interviewed Ive in June, and this came out the week of iPhone 16. The timing was interesting. But yeah, he's working. I think the Times kind of buried the lead here.
It's like the last paragraph of the story.
It's very, very end.
He confirms that he's working on some kind of AI device with OpenAI. It sounds like they haven't quite nailed down what it will be. It was the first time he'd confirmed it on the record. My understanding is that Love From is super small. It's like 40-ish, 50 people. And
there's only 10 people working on this project.
Yeah,
I think.
and a wild detail in this story is as Mr. Ive climbed a wooden staircase to the studio's second floor that morning, and by the way, he bought like a city block of downtown San Francisco for their office. He said he spoke about Love From's clients, which pay the firm as much as $200 million annually.
It's very good.
And that includes like Airbnb, Ferrari. He just designed a $3,000 jacket with Moncler. Love From is like 50 people. So how much money are they making?
Johnny Ive.
Well,
This is
they bought a
crazy.
whole block in San Francisco. Like, they doing good.
Brian Chesky is paying him $200 million a year to like riff on what the Airbnb logo should be.
Can I just tell you a story about the Airbnb Johnny Ive connection?
Yeah.
Which, because I was reading this and it says what he worked on. Like they did the experiences where you can like live in a pineapple house or something. Whatever Airbnb
$200 million
founder mode nonsense is happening, right? Airbnb last year, the year before, after the Johnny Ive stuff was out, like announced a bunch of redesign stuff and like an app redesign and all this stuff. And we emailed them and we're like, was this the stuff Johnny Ive worked on? Because obviously that is a very relevant and interesting detail. And they're like, yeah. And then we like published it and they like freaked out at us. And they're like, that's not wrong. Everyone's like, take it down. And we're like, but you said, okay. And we like adjusted the story. You can like read it. There's all these like back and forth corrections in it because Airbnb is trying to clarify this. And I was like, what is the point of spending all this money on Johnny Ive if you don't want to say that he worked on this stuff?
Yeah, that's worth easily 100 of the 200 million is just to be able to put Johnny Ive in your press release.
Check out the new Airbnb app designed by Johnny Ive. I don't know. Brian Chesky's coming on Decoder in a little bit. I'm going to ask him about it in addition to talking about founder mode, which he's excited to talk about. But it's I read this profile and I was like, but yeah, we tried to write the story about him designing this app and they were like not into it. They were like pushed back on this idea that he had done it super hard.
He's like the Wizard of Oz. He just needs to be in the background.
There's also the part there's a part in the story that I loved where he designed a steering wheel for like an EV Ferrari and he's like he completely rethought what a steering wheel should be. I'm like, it's a circle.
Oh, he didn't do a yoke?
It's definitely a circle. I'm famously a car guy. It's very good.
Yeah. So I just think it's like Ive is clearly gearing up, and I think there's a lot of pressure on him if this AI device is going to be real. Like that is you're Johnny Ive. Like this thing has to work. It has to not be the humane pin. And he's got Evans Hankey, who succeeded him at Apple leading design at Lovefrom, working on this device with him. So it's a bunch of OG Apple people that invented all of like the original Apple stuff with him. So that's a really interesting situation to watch.
We've seen one company with a very similar description to that make AI hardware and it didn't go super great. So we'll see.
Gosh.
Yeah, like he doesn't have, for example, Apple's famed antenna team, which once had to save his ass from his own designs of a wireless product.
It'll be super thin. Whatever it is, you can bet it will be thin.
25 minutes of battery life.
5.
I'm very curious. I mean, after we just had this whole conversation about Meta, they have all of the same like Apple is not going to give him hooks into iOS, presumably. Mm-hmm. Or the reason that ChatGPT got announced as integrated in iOS 18 is when this device comes out, Tim Cook will be like, it's mine now.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling whatever it is, it's going to be so deeply, deeply weird that it's going to be awesome. Like Ive, the longer he's away from Apple, he just is doing weirder and weirder stuff. And so some kind of AI device from him is like, yes.
Yeah,
I'm excited about it. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be insane, and I love it.
Altman probably isn't going to be excited about it because he wants something that he can sell and make lots of money.
What do you mean? OpenAI is working with him.
Yeah, I know, but like, is that the guy you hire if you want to make something really commercial and sell and make lots of money?
I mean, you could argue Johnny
people on their
Ive's
staff.
done okay with that.
He's done, yeah, he did great.
The iPhone.
He made the iPhone.
iPod did decent.
This is a design firm.
That's true. I will say there's a picture of him in that profile where he's just holding his iPhone in like a regular blue Apple rubber case. And I'm like, that's not weird enough for Johnny Ive. And I'm like, oh, but he made the iPhone.
He puts his
no
feet.
gold Apple Watch either. Gosh. Yeah.
It was upsetting he put his feet on the couch. That was the part that got me. Like these gorgeous white couches and he had his shoes on them. I was like, oh, hurts.
He can just get new ones. All right. Yeah. Crayons, what's your lightning round item?
Sean got a hands-on with the PS5 Pro. And if you like to pixel peep, it's gonna rule.
I do.
It's apparently he says it really like lives up to the hype as far as like things just look a lot clearer, they're a lot prettier. It's awesome in that way, but also it is still so much money. And you can, there's a lot of photos in his piece where you can go and look and try to see the differences. And it is sort of like playing highlights as a kid. You can see them, but you gotta look for them. So I would say if you don't have a giant monitor that you sit like 2 feet from, you're probably okay. But otherwise, this is cool.
I will say that I was in the queue to buy the PS5 Pro 30th anniversary edition, and then I forgot I was in the queue and I lost my place in line.
The one to really look at is, and David made fun of me before we recorded because I pointed this out, is the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. You can really see the ray tracing working. It's beautiful.
Thank God. I've always said that's the main thing missing from Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is ray tracing. That's the thing preventing me from enjoying Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
There's a very funny line in Sean's Hands-On where he notes that all the controllers were wired so they couldn't get far away from the screen and not see the ray tracing anymore.
Yeah.
Choice.
It's
That's pretty good.
All right, David, what's yours?
While you're over here, Nilay, denigrating Google's headphones, Chris Welch published our review of the Google Pixel Buds Pro 2, which is a name that I have never said correctly until just now. So
I'm
yay for
very
me.
proud of you.
They're awesome. They're smaller. They sound better. They're a little more expensive. Seem great. But the thing I just want to point out is that Google absolutely crushed this hardware cycle, like in a way that Google never has before. The TV streamer is great. The Buds are great. The watch is great. The phones are great. The foldable phones are great. Like Google just like did the whole thing this year. And that is sort of wild to me.
Do you think that's Rick Osterloh now runs the whole thing?
It's Dieter. It's all Dieter.
No, I think whatever.
And Dan, don't forget Dan.
Yeah, it's Dieter and Dan. They did it. Thank you guys.
I think there's a certain amount of this that is like the compound interest phenomenon, right? It's just like Google's been at this a while. And like, hey, Google, if you're listening, this is why it's good to stick to things, because you can make them better over time and then they're good and people like them. Yeah. Like that's a concept. Try it with other things. But at any rate, like what Google did here is not like reinvent the wheel as it is prone to do all the time. It just made all of its products better. And it did that a bunch of years in a row. And I think the thing Rick Osterloh gets credit for is he has made a plan and stuck to it. Like I talked to him years ago at the very beginning and I was like, why on earth would anyone believe you that you're going to care about this for a long time? And he's like, you shouldn't. I don't know why you would, but we are going to. Like we're bought into this. And this feels like the first time that Google is like really truly playing hardware offense in like it's up there with everybody. We gave the TV streamer a 9. Chris gave the Pixel Buds Pro 2 a 9. Like these are some of the best products you can buy in their class. And I don't think that has ever been true of Google products before. So I just think that's very cool.
I didn't put this in the iPhone review because I think it's unfair to say this until Apple Intelligence comes out and we can use the features. But I spent a lot of time using a Pixel 9 Pro camera stuff while I was doing that review to compare the cameras. And every time I picked up the Pixel, I was like, this phone is a lot more fun than iOS right now.
Yeah.
Like it's just like bursting with ideas, the chaotic, weird, clippy level ideas about what
every time you breathe, it's like Gemini?
Yeah.
Should we Gemini?
Like,
do you want a Gemini?
It's a little nuts, but it's fun because it's just like ideas, like new ideas for what a phone could do or should do or why it should do anything at all. And Apple is like, all the icons are brown. Huh? You've been asking for big brown icons and now you can have them. Can I just say one more thing about the iPhone and then I will do my lightning round item? Control center, total chaos, like a mess. And they should just let me edit it on my Mac.
I feel that way about my home screen.
Let me do the home screen and control center on my Mac. I know you can do phone mirroring, click and drag. No. I want like full, like old school Adobe PageMaker print layout, like all the tools, the mirror, the rulers, and we're past being able to do this on a phone.
Control center is like once you get it set up, it's pretty great. But the thing is like, and I feel the same way about the home screen. Like if I drag an icon somewhere into a page that is already largely full of icons, it takes a PhD to figure out where all those icons are.
Yeah.
Like it is just a mystery every single time.
The fastest, most capable, most efficient processors humankind has ever created. And it's like, I don't know what's going on with these icons. Like too much for me, man.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Nilay, what's yours?
We have to end here because we've been talking about AI gadgets the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Only 5,000 people use the Rabbit R1 every day, according to the CA.
Said how many people own it?
He gave an interview at some conference, and the number is 5,000 daily active users of the Rabbit.
That's more than I thought.
Yeah, I was like, I'm surprised that many people have found a good use for the Rabbit.
The other thing to note is if you cannot recycle or resell a Humane AI pin, but you can just return it to the company for full price.
Which kudos, good to that, good for them.
You just
that is
send it back.
That is the correct thing to do.
It's just my bad.
Wait, I am curious. I've spent a lot of time.
So it's
trying to
5%
decide.
of buyers. 5,000 people is 5% of the Rabbit R1 buyers.
Well, that's 100,000
claim.
is the biggest number we heard. I actually think it's probably true that more people bought it than that. That's just the last number we heard. Is that higher or lower than you would have guessed? Like reasonably knowing
Way
that
higher.
at least 100,000 people bought the thing. Most people buy gadgets intending to use them. You think 5,000 is higher than you would have expected?
Do you use yours every day?
No, it's sitting right here. The battery's been dead since, I don't know, April. I am going to fire it back
Do
up
you
though.
podcast from like a pile of dead, useless gadgets?
I do everything from a pile of dead, useless gadgets. Yes, that's what my job is. I live my life everything you can't see in this maybe fake background of mine is just a pile of dead, useless gadgets.
It's just slowly swelling batteries.
I have the humane pin right here.
Oh, good.
It's been 6 months since these things came out almost. I believe it was April 11th, so we're a couple weeks away from the 6-month anniversary. And I promised when I did them that in 6 months I would come back. So God help me, I have to fire these devices back up and see how it's going.
Yeah. I think it's substantially higher than I expected. I expected the people who work at the company to use this thing every day, and everything else we'll see. I will say
daily is a lot. I think I would have guessed the number was higher than this for like people who still turn it on sometimes. Yeah, daily is a lot.
Jesse Liu, the CEO of Rabbit, has told us he's coming on Decoder. I will let you know when that happens. But we're booked. I have it's on my calendar. I'm dying to ask him questions. So let me know what your questions are. And we'll see if we can get some answers about the Rabbit.
I will say, to Rabbit's credit, they have like continued to post through it. Like they are not shy about the stuff they've been dealing with.
Yeah, no, he's out there. I mean, he's obviously on a media tour, right? He's at this conference. He wants to be on Decoder. We're gonna do it. I'm very curious. Like many of the things we talked about with Meta, can you get past the phone operating system, or do you have to build your own hardware? Rabbit is an answer to that question.
Yep.
But then you have to do all the rest of it. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. We're way over. We got to wrap this thing up. Does anybody else have any last minute Zuckerberg style dunks on the whole industry to issue? No? All right. Let us know. You can get a hold of us. There's quite a lot to talk about. So we welcome your feedback. Leave us your voicemails. You can send David a text to his Rabbit R1, I believe.
I'm trying to figure out what other dead gadgets I have around here. There's a lot.
I also have an office that's full of just slowly expanding lithium-ion batteries.
I have a
It's great.
green
It's very
flip
safe.
phone that I couldn't tell you what it is or why I have it, but I have it.
That's
Here it
enough.
is.
That's the Vergecast, everybody. We'll be back next week. Rock and roll.
And that's it for the Vergecast this week. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 866-VERGE11. The Vergecast is a production of The Verge and Vox Media Podcast Network. Our show is produced by Liam James, Will Poor, and Eric Gomez. And that's it. We'll see you next week.